Welcome to the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network, the podcast 10 for 10, which brings you the week's top 10 compliance stories curated together in one podcast each week. Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, brings you the compliance professional stories you need to be aware of at the end of your busy week. Sit back and in 10 minutes, hear about the stories every compliance professional should be aware of. Every Saturday, 10 for 10 highlights the most important news, insights, and analysis for the compliance professional, all curated by the voice of compliance, Tom Fox. Get your weekly filling of compliance stories with 10 for 10. Hosted by Tom Fox. 10 for 10 is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. First, a word from the sponsor of the Compliance Podcast Network for this month, Ethico.
In the intricate world of ethics and compliance, each second is precious, and slow case closures are more than just delays, they're missed opportunities. Enter Ethico. Our solution revolutionizes case management, cutting closure times in half and turning every challenge into a chance for improvement. Imagine a workspace where efficiency and compliance coexist harmoniously. Don't just dream of faster resolutions, make it your reality. Visit ethico.com/CPN today to book a demo and dive into our exclusive white paper by Tom Fox, the ROI of compliance, and to try our free ROI calculator. Empower your team with the tools they deserve.
Welcome to 10 for 10 for the week ending June 29, 2024. Some of the stories that caught my eye this week include the Chinese expulsion of ousted defense ministers in a corruption crackdown, as reported by NBC News. Two former defense ministers from the ruling Communist Party were expelled over corruption allegations, and they are no longer anywhere to be found. So probably means they're in a Chinese prison somewhere. Next up from the New York Times, first of several articles from the Times this week, Boeing has angered officials at the National Transportation Safety Board by improperly releasing information on the blowout of the panel of the 737 MAX, which happened earlier this year. A Boeing executive said that 4 critical bolts had been left off the door that blew out, and that this was the cause of it. The NTSB said that their investigation is ongoing and that was inappropriate for Boeing to release that information to the public. Next up from the Wall Street Journal, a federal jury seriously spanked the NFL for antitrust and anti-competitive violations with their Sunday ticket package and ordered the NFL to pay $4.7 billion. Of course, this is an antitrust claim, so it can be trebled by the judge. So this could be a very expensive lesson for the NFL, as clearly this was an anti-competitive measure taken by the NFL, although they tried to claim it was just a premium product. From the Financial Times, a report of first of several reports, unfortunately, on the U.S. Supreme Court, but this one is that the U.S. bankruptcy or the bankruptcy trustee was successful in overturning the deal to protect the Sackler family from their Purdue Pharma scandal involving opioids. They wanted to pay some $6 billion into a bankruptcy plan and get a full release of liability, and the court said, if you are not part of the bankruptcy, you can't get a liability release. So tough duty for the Sackler family on that one. The Supreme Court also released an opinion overruling the Chevron doctrine, imperiling a wide array of federal rules. This had been a doctrine in place, set, of course, by the Supreme Court some 40 years ago, There have been 70 U.S. Supreme Court decisions relying on Chevron and 17,000 from lower courts. And we have no idea what's going to happen now. And the Supreme Court doesn't seem to be interested in either stare decisis, the plain language of the statute, or really anything else other than their own whims. And yet another ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court, this time reported by Rolling Stone, is that the Supreme Court has now green-lighted corruption, saying that if you pay a gratuity after you are corruptly awarded a contract, that's okay. And that corruption in the form of gratuity does not violate federal law. Interestingly, this case involved domestic corruption. Of course, the U.S. Department of Justice fraud section FCPA unit has taken a different view of that under the FCPA, although Gibson Dunn says that, this applies to U.S. or the FCPA as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if U.S. companies simply move to paying major gratuities for awarding of corrupt contracts. Next up from CNN, 2 Adidas employees in China have left the company during the pendency of Adidas's investigation of bribery allegations in the country. One was left because they did not meet the company's leadership expectations of demonstrating mutual respect and trust. So that pretty much means that they refused to cooperate, I would assume. And it looks like the allegations against Adidas may bear up some weight. Next up from the Cyprus Shipping News, a very interesting report that the corruption cost of shipping goods into Nigeria are $182,300 per shipment. And this is an eye-opener for the cost of corruption in the shipping industry. The report was developed by the Marine Anti-Corruption Network and gathered firsthand data to the extent of maritime corruption and in the maritime sector. While detailed accounts of direct cost of corruption were documented, a comprehensive overall assessment, including direct costs, indirect and direct costs, has been lacking. Understanding these hidden costs is also critical. So this is really the first time this sort of package was put together, and I think it's going to be very telling for many companies going forward. The BBC reports that the U.S. Department of Justice has decided to bring criminal charges against Boeing. What's interesting is no U.S. paper has reported this, and in fact, I don't even think anyone's reported this, citing to the BBC article. The Department of Justice has a July 7 deadline to determine whether it's going to bring charges against Boeing. These charges will be brought under the current DPA for the 2 737 MAX crashes, which killed some 346 individuals, and for Boeing's failure to meet the obligations under that, and of course, reopening the claims in that DPA. So if the DOJ does so, it's going to be a very difficult time for Boeing going forward. And our final story today comes to us from Bloomberg, which reports that Hungary has begun an investigation into Transparency International. Obviously, this is for TI's placing Hungary in a lower category due to the corruption of the government. But now we have the government attacking TI. Have you ever wondered how to show the ROI of your compliance program? Have you struggled with the budgeting process, getting the funds you want for your compliance program? Well, I've partnered with Ethico to put together a white paper on the ROI of compliance, which shows you not only how to demonstrate ROI, but also how to speak finance when you're sitting across from the CFO with your budget proposals. Check out the website and get the white paper. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of 10 for 10. I hope you'll check out the newest podcast in the Compliance Podcast Network, the Compliance Tip of the Day. In Compliance Tip of the Day, I give a 5 to 8 minute summary of one tip that you can integrate into your compliance program or put together for greater compliance program efficiency.